Growing up, I had a wild imagination. In the yard next to my house, every stick I picked up was a sword. The floor really is lava, you know? This is why I love Ichiban Kasuga, because every time he comes across some ordinary enemies, his imagination runs wild and he sees what they really are, unique foes that must be defeated. He is the hero, after all. For longtime fans of the Yakuza series, the transition from an action-based battle system to a turn-based JRPG full of friend and foe weaknesses might have been a bit jarring, but for me, it was the reason why I decided to give the game any attention at all. I love RPGs set in modern day. The turn-based battle system was simply icing on the cake. Unfortunately, I think the icing could have been just a bit tastier. However, to take this food metaphor just a bit further, taste is subjective, and I'm sure some of you might disagree with me. In Yakuza Like a Dragon, your party members have character stats and job stats, the latter being more important to pay attention to than I realized during my playthrough. As you level up, so do your stats. From magic and healing to basic offense and defense, there's a lot of depth to be explored. As you pick various jobs for your party members, you can cater an experience that fits a playstyle that you want. Typically, when I play through a game like this, I simply choose what looks good to me. However, I made a critical mistake once the job system opened up for me. I simply Googled, what are the best jobs in Yakuza Like a Dragon, and I followed a guide. I really wish I wouldn't have done that. You see, there are a lot of unique jobs available with their own styles of attack, both physical and magic. However, some of the quote-unquote best jobs are straightforward and not as interesting as the ones that look and sound interesting to play, or at least a bit wacky and fun, which is the entire reason why you ought to consider playing this game in the first place. It has an amazing cast of characters, a compelling story, and is also just a bit wacky and fun. However, when you focus on best stats and using pro strategies, you miss out on what makes this game great. I really believe that the battle system that RGG Studio came up with for Yakuza Like a Dragon is a great first attempt. Some of the special attacks your characters can perform are full of so much charm and creativity that you want to watch the cutscene multiple times before eventually being thankful there's an option from the beginning to just skip it. Each time one of my party members would learn a new ability, I could not wait to see what it looked like. My biggest complaint about the battle system is that it does get a bit repetitive, and the rock, paper, scissors, strengths and weaknesses system, a la something like Pokemon, isn't as fleshed out or as well explained as it could have been. You could spend hours and hours unlocking job skills and figuring out what's best through trial and error, or you could just bash the A button over and over through enemy types that are resistant to your attacks, but still do some damage. I did the latter, which did hinder my enjoyment of the game. Let me make something clear. The battle system is fun, but it isn't perfect. As you do begin to set up your team's jobs and begin to find or craft equipment for them, you feel this amazing sense of progression that, tied in with the moves you unlock, never really makes the grind feel like an absolute chore. One thing the battle system does remarkably well is not feel out of place in this modern era game. The central conceit of the experience is that the protagonist, Ichiban, doesn't see hoodlums and hustlers, but instead an enemy that has been changed into something much more fantastic. Not only do you get Dragon Quest vibes, which the game is appropriately named after, but you also definitely see the influence of classics such as Earthbound, full of color and unique enemy designs. The battle system functions as the perfect backdrop to complement what I consider to be one of the best stories in a video game of all time. I truly hate to speak too much about the story because it should be experienced from beginning to end without a single spoiler. My experience with crime dramas such as these actually goes back to my love of The Untouchables by Elliot Ness, a book about Al Capone and the American Mafia. One of the unique elements of the story is seeing how the characters and families from the previous Yakuza games, classic Yakuza gangsters, are trying to adapt in this world of cell phones, GPS, and a massive culture shift via political movements and many aging patriarchs. The pacing in this game is unique to the Yakuza series. For example, an entire chapter could be focused on the story and expansion of that story, and the next is all about combat as you work your way through a dungeon or a set of story beats. I've not talked a lot about the story, and I won't in this review, other than to say it's incredible from beginning to end. I laughed, I cried some more, and I enjoyed it from the very beginning to the moments the credits rolled. Honestly though, you cannot talk about the story without spending some time talking about the voiceover and localization for the game, which stars Kaji Tang as Ichiban Kasuga. Kaji and his co-stars, which include the legendary George Takei, deliver a stunning performance that is crucial to making the story come across as well as it does to the English-speaking audience. There are hours of cutscenes with amazing dialogue that continues to draw you closer to the characters and the world that they live in. These characters are broken people in a broken world who have all been dealt a difficult hand, all while trying to do what they believe to be the right thing. One of the narratives we throughout the story is that life simply isn't black and white, and many of Ejinsho's residents are trying to help each other out just to get by. Yakuza Like a Dragon doesn't shy away from dealing with the realities of homelessness, what life is like for those who work in a brothel, and of course the brutal life of being a Yakuza. Each of the party members and other supporting characters become a very important part of Ichiban's life. Like a Dragon emphasizes the importance of people that you choose to be around, and how you can support one another and build each other up. I've never played a Dragon Quest title, but I'm curious if this is another reflection of that series. Let me encourage you to take every opportunity you can to get to know your party members through unlocking bond levels and completing their personal side quests. Not only do you unlock some powerful moves in combat, but you also get to know these people and interact with their lives. I think one of the main reasons this game resonated so well with me is the fact that these characters just aren't teenagers. In fact, they're in their 30s and 40s. Adachi often complains about his back. Namba commends himself on how much more in shape he is by the end of the story. And the men and women who star in the story all have wrinkles. Some of them are beginning to gray along the hairline. And they're just not kids. These are people who've lived a full life of ups and downs, who just happen to get sucked into a plot by some truly nefarious people, and are honestly really the only ones who could stop it. Yes, there are some JRPG tropes still in this game. Yakuza Like a Dragon is a dense game full of sub-stories which function as side quests and mini-games to play. As soon as I had control of Ichiban on the map, I began to explore all the interesting things that there are to do and see in this beautiful city. It's easy to look around Ejinsho and get lost in all the things that there are to do. The main quest is always there for you to continue, but I do recommend you complete all of the game's sub-stories to learn about the residents of Ejinsho and how Ichiban truly becomes the hero of the city. Some of the craziest stories get told that will have you laughing. They're the perfect comedic relief to what can be a very intense main quest line. Another benefit to doing all of the sub-stories is that there's an opportunity to unlock some extra help in battle that you simply do not want to miss out on, and I'll leave it at that. My biggest frustration with Yakuza Like a Dragon is how the game practically forces you to invest a few hours into a business simulation minigame and side story in order to raise significant amounts of cash that you'll need not only to craft or buy items, but also at one point progress the main storyline. Until you unlock a certain chapter in the game, grinding for experience and cash can be a real chore as you play through the same boring dungeon over and over. Eventually, this minigame unlocks where you can make a lot of money. Unfortunately, I just didn't love it. It isn't extremely challenging, and it does net you quite a bit of money as you raise higher in the ranks. Perhaps you'll feel differently about it than I did. Make sure and let me know down in the comments. Other minigames such as can collecting and dragon kart racing had me hooked to achieve best times, highest scores, and unlock every reward I could. The best thing about Yakuza Like a Dragon is the variety of things to do and see beyond the main quest. I'm confident that even in my 80 hours with the game, there was no way I absolutely did everything. Eventually, I had to finish the campaign, wrap up the sub-stories, and move on. Despite its few flaws, Yakuza Like a Dragon is absolutely my game of the year for 2020. Hanging out with Ichiban and his friends was an absolute joy. I cannot express to you how amazing this game really is. From its visuals and storytelling to the voice acting and over-the-top crazy combat, Yakuza Like a Dragon is the definition of a ton of fun. I didn't want the story to end. I didn't want my time with Ichiban to be over. Play Yakuza Like a Dragon. It is one of the greatest JRPGs of all time, and I can't wait to see what RGG Studio does next.